Hello all. Our multimedia presentation is about Afro-Canadian basketball icons, presented by Darius, Jabu, Jacksen, and Martin. Our presentation examines the lives of Stewart Granger and Fred Thomas, both notable Canadian basketball athletes. Stewart Granger is a Canadian basketball athlete who paved the way for other Black Canadians to play in the NBA. Stewart Granger began his basketball journey in Montreal, but moved to the United States to pursue his basketball career in high school. Granger attended Nazareth Regional High School in Brooklyn, New York. After graduating high school, he immediately went to college and played Division I basketball at Villanova University. Granger was drafted into the NBA in the first round as the 24th overall pick by the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was in the same draft class as Clyde Drexler and Ralph Sampson, who are two Houston Rocket legends. Granger was the first Black Canadian to be drafted in the NBA in 1983. Granger's breakthrough in the NBA was significant for Black Canadians as it allowed young Black Canadians to chase their basketball journeys. In addition to playing in the NBA, he also played with the Canadian national team. At the time, not many Black Canadians were playing for Team Canada, and Granger was one of the few. Stewart Granger was one of Canada's most talented exports on the basketball court, in a time where many Canadians were still trying to make it to the NBA. Granger averaged 4 points per game over his total NBA career and performed his best on the Cleveland Cavaliers with an average of 4.5 points per game. Dwight Walton said, "For me especially, back in the day, playing in the United States, playing at a Division I school was a major deal." Regarding Granger's transition from Canadian basketball to American basketball, as there is a major skill gap between the two. No one will truly know the burden Granger had to bear being the first, but we do know that those who came after walked along an easier path because of him. Fred Thomas was born on December 26, 1923. His parents were Charles Fred Thomas and Edith May Thomas. He is the second oldest of 7 siblings and was raised outside of Windsor, Ontario. Thomas enrolled at Assumption University, which is now known as the University of Windsor. He played basketball for Assumption University, and the Harlem Globetrotters eventually asked Fred Thomas to try out. Thomas made the team and spent several seasons playing for them in their affiliated clubs. Many argue that racial barriers prevented Thomas from becoming a national star and contributed to him being relatively unknown in the Canadian sporting history. He played baseball in the farm system in the Cleveland baseball team and briefly played in the Canadian Football League. Thomas was undoubtedly the first Black Canadian offered a professional Major League Baseball contract, in addition to being the first to break the color barrier in minor league A-ball. His inspiration continued as he was the second Black player to play in the Canadian Football League and first Black Canadian to play for the Toronto Argonauts. A multi-sport superstar athlete who overcame racism to serve his country as a fighter pilot, a man who broke down multiple racial barriers in sport with a quiet determination and a beloved role model to children, he dedicated the last decades of his life to coaching and teaching. Thomas wasn't inducted into the Windsor Sports Hall of Fame or Canadian Basketball Hall of Fame until after his death due to racial barriers. During World War II, he battled prejudice and stereotypes in the armed forces and earned his fighter pilot wings. He was denied opportunity to play in the NBA due to their white-only policy. If this law was not present, he could have been the first Black Canadian superstar in the NBA. To this day, he is still not a member of the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame nor the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame because his accomplishments weren't recognized during such a racist period. He was a 3-sport star in an era of institutional racism. The following is a brief synopsis of Thomas's overall career achievements. Thomas was inducted into the Canadian Basketball Hall of Fame in 1995. He was additionally inducted into the Windsor University Hall of Fame in 1994. He was a 3-sport star in an era of institutional racism in sports and limited opportunity for Black athletes. Thomas was one of the only 2 international inductees into the Afro-American Sports Hall of Fame in 1994. He was the first Black Canadian offered a professional Major League Baseball contract and the first to break the color barrier in the minor league A baseball. He is still Windsor's all-time leading scorer. Thomas was voted the second best Canadian basketball player of the first half of the 20th century after Norm Baker. Both Stewart Granger and Fred Thomas played major roles in paving the way for future Black Canadian athletes to play in the NBA. Nowadays, there are many Black Canadians that play in the NBA, like RJ Barrett, Andrew Wiggins, and Tristan Thompson. Hopefully you enjoyed our detailed examination into the deep-rooted history of Afro-Canadian basketball players. We recreated a 1980s basketball mixtape. We hope you enjoy.